All right. Good evening, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, wherever you are in the world listening to me. So I'll start first of all by introducing myself. My name is Chilion Tabe. I am from Cameroon, precisely from Kumba, resident in the United States in Dallas, Texas. Been in the United States for close to 10 years now. And I want to dive in. I'm married. Let me introduce myself properly. So I'm a married man with a wife and two kids, and I must always introduce myself as a born again. So I must introduce myself in Christ. Before I even go ahead, I want to first of all start by thanking my brother Nasako, who is the CEO of Toride. Sometimes in life we always think that the people that needs to be able to push us and get out what is in us must be people with titles like doctors and all of those things. But sometimes it takes just your own fellow brother, your own fellow friend, just someone who is kind of your peer to be able to talk you out of that which you have inside of you, to help you to come out and be able to realize your biggest potential. And Nasako has been one of those people who has always pulled me out and told me, hey, Tabe, there's a lot of you that you have to share. There's a lot of you that our people need to hear, and you need to get out of your comfort zone and start talking out and sharing this message to people. So I want to thank Toride Nasako so much for pulling me out of my shell. The topic I'm going to be talking about today is about risk and success. But before I dive in, I want to first of all set an expectation. I do not come to you all like someone who has achieved success, who has made it in life, who is succeeding. No, that's not how I come to you. I come to you like a young man who is also struggling to succeed, struggling to achieve success. And in my journey to success, I've made lots of mistakes. And some of those mistakes were horrible, and as well I've made a lot of successes as well, and I've learned from my mistakes, I've learned from my successes. And while I'm still in the journey towards achieving success, I thought it's good and important for me to share the things that I'm learning through my journey from my own experiences and what I'm learning by listening to other people, to share with the community so we can learn together and be able to grow towards success together. But I want to give a disclaimer. I must attest that in life, I've never met a speaker. I've never listened to a YouTube video. I've never gone to a conference. I've never been even inside of a church that a speaker, a pastor, or whoever has spoken, and I agree with every little thing they say. I've never seen that kind of a person. I usually agree with some of the things they say, and there are some things they say, I say, nope, I don't agree with that. I am not taking that. So I say that to say that the things I will be sharing today, not everybody is going to agree with me. So if you don't agree with a thing that I say, please feel free to throw it away. But the things that I say which you think like, oh, I think he's making sense here, please feel free to implement that and let's share the reward together. So that's just a quick disclaimer. So the topic, risk and success. So I think the first question you're asking in your mind is, why risk and success? So when Nasako reached out to me and said, hey, let's talk, let me come and talk on something, that's what came to my mind. And I think that came from a place of a burden, because I've been able to see our brothers, our sisters, both abroad and also in Cameroon, who have stayed in one position for so long just because they are scared of taking a risk. And that in itself is a very big problem, because they realize that risk is all around us. And no matter how we try to run away from risk, the risk keeps coming towards us and we cannot escape from it. So we better stand up, face the risk, and try to see how we can make success out of that risk. So that's the reason why I decided to talk on risk and success. But before we talk about risk and success, I think it's important for us to be able to define what is risk in the first place. What is risk? So my understanding of risk, this is not risk per the dictionary. I'm speaking more on practical, on what I see happening around us. My understanding of risk is the fear or the chances of losing something. It could be the chances of you losing money. It could be the chances of you investing your time on something for so long and you got nothing out of it, so you lost your time. It could be you losing a relationship. There are times when we need to take some big moves in life, but because of some relationships that we have and we are unwilling to lose those relationships, or to risk those relationships, we don't get to take that step. So it can be loss of relationship. It can be loss of even reputation. You don't want, what will people think about me? So that's a risk. The fear to lose something. It could be money. It could be relationship. It could be time. It could be anything. So then what is success? Success to me is the reward for taking a risk. What in big book we say the return on investment. In a nutshell, the return is the success and the investment is the time you put in, the relationship that you put at risk, that you had to risk that relationship, the money that you put in, and everything that you would have stand at a chance of losing because of that. That is success to me. So, but that's just one aspect of it. I know people can define success in many ways. Success could be what your life ends up at the end. So my definition of success right here is in context to what I'm trying to talk about. So that's my definition of success. It's the reward for taking a risk, a return on an investment. So the next question that comes is, okay, so let's tie the both of them together, risk and success. So why? What is success vis-a-vis risk? So the first thing I would say to define success vis-a-vis risk is, this is my philosophy, this is my analogy. I see success to be like honey that is wrapped up in bees. If any of you have ever watched an untapped honey, you walked somewhere, either you watch it on TV, on YouTube, or you physically walked by a tree and you saw honey somewhere. Most of the times when you look at that tree, look at that bunch, you don't see the honey. All you see is a swarm of bees. But behind the swarm of bees, or in the center of the swarm of bees, it is the honey. And there is no way you will get to that honey without facing the bees. You must face the bees to get to the honey. And bees stink. They sting. So you stand a chance of being stung and getting sick to get the honey. To me, that's what success is. Every success is wrapped within a risk. For you to be born, somebody had to risk their life for you to be born. For women who have given birth to children, for fathers who have watched their wife labor to have a child, you agree with me that childbirth is almost a life and death affair for a woman. So someone took a risk for you to be born. Even for you to walk as a baby when you were born, you had to take the risk of falling for you to stand up and walk. I've seen kids while growing up in Cameroon, some kids take more than 1 year before they walk because some of them are just so scared to stand up. The child only wants to sit down and doesn't want to stand up because he's afraid or she is afraid to fall. But you see another child who starts walking at 8 months, 7 months, because the child is willing to take the risk to stand up and fall. So risk is inherent in every aspect of life. I traveled from Africa to immigrate to the US. For me to come here, it was risk because the plane could have crashed. And I died. When there's a plane crash, usually everybody dies. Even getting married is a risk. People have married husbands and wives that they thought they were the angels, but those husbands and wives have killed them. So everywhere around us is risk, and we cannot run away from it. So wrapped up in every success is risk. And we cannot be able to separate risk and success. Now, I believe that in this world or in this life, we have two groups of people. We have one group of people who are so careful. I call them a group of people I call that group the risk evasive group. People who are so scared of risk, they don't want to indulge into anything that has risk. Evading risk is not a bad thing, but I'm talking about people who are living in the extremes of risk evasiveness. They are so scared of risk, they don't want to face anything that has risk. Now, on the other side of the spectrum, we have another group of people who are very risk aggressive. They fear nothing. And these people can also run themselves dead by the kind of risk that they take. That is also not the best. But somewhere in the middle, I will not say it's at the center, I will not say it's at 75% of the way, more towards the aggressive, but somewhere in the middle between the risk evasive and the risk aggressive lies success. And so for us to succeed, we need to be able to find that good balance between being risk evasive and being risk aggressive. We have to face the risk, but also be careful. There's somewhere in the balance. But if I would suggest to you my personal opinion, what I'll tell you is that the worst among these two groups of people is the group of people who are risk evasive, the people who are so scared of risk. I would say those are the worst group of people. And I'll suggest to you that even God hates those group of people. There is a story in the Bible where God told the Israelites to go out for war. But they were so skeptical, they were so afraid, they didn't want to take the risk to go to war, and they did not go to war at the time that God wanted them to go to war. Later on, when they felt like they have mustered their courage, they came back to God. Should we go up and fight? God said, no, don't go anymore. I am not with you. You guys were so scared. You were so afraid of taking the risk at the time I wanted. Please don't go. And the Israelites went and they were brutally killed. Even God hates people who are so scared of risk. There is another man in the Bible who is called Peter. He was among the 3 people that Jesus loved so much among his 12 apostles. Peter was a very risk-aggressive person among all the disciples. This is a man who saw Jesus Christ, knowing that Jesus is God. You saw God walking on water and coming, and you are bold to ask him, Jesus, can I also walk and come with you? And Jesus said, yes. He did not blink to think for 5 seconds. This guy just stepped out and started walking on water. It takes a risk taker. And Jesus Christ loved this guy. This is a guy that when they came to attack Jesus, he quickly stepped forward and got the knife and chopped up the ear of the soldier. He did not fear of the risk that if I chop this guy's ear off, they can put me in jail forever. He stepped out. And Jesus Christ loved, though he was so risk evasive, aggressive, Jesus loved him because you can take somebody like that and mold that risk aggressiveness and make them to become very big heroes in life. So we need to be people who are upfront and ready to be able to jump in and take risk. There is no way we can succeed without facing risk squarely. Now, I asked myself a question. With all this reality around life that it's impossible for us to do or succeed without risk, and I know that people know it. I'm not preaching a new message here. I'm not talking something that you all don't know. I'm simply coming to remind you. There's a word in the Bible that says exhortation. Exhortation means that, it does not mean you are telling people new things. It means you are helping to encourage them back, remind them of things that they already know, to be fresh in their minds so they can be acting upon it. I don't think I'm telling you guys anything new this evening. But I'm just coming to remind you guys of what you already know, to rekindle that fire that is inside of you. So ask myself a question, but with all this reality that we must deal with risk, what are some of the reasons that's making people don't want to take risk? When we know that we cannot avoid risk, why are people not taking risk? So when I began to ask myself this question and looking at my own experiences and also listening to other people, I came to find out 4 reasons why. 4 big reasons why people don't take risk. People are scared to take risk. One of it is skepticism. Now, I'll give an analogy to explain this concept. You can explain or share a business venture or a business opportunity with 2 groups of people. Share the opportunity with somebody, for example, called John. And John will ask you 5 strategic questions. When you give him the answers to those 5 strategic questions, he will tell him if he needs to think about that more or not. If the answers are satisfactory, he will use a fairly reasonable, I use the word reasonable, a reasonable amount of time to do some research. That reasonable amount of time could be 1 week, it could be 2 weeks. It depends on what kind of business venture. There are some business ventures that demands that you need to take like 2 years to research. There are some that demands you to take just about a week to research. But when someone starts taking more than something that is a week, you start taking 3 months, then you're beginning to be a problem, right? You fall in that group of 1. So you have like John, which is group A. You share the risk. They ask you 5 strategic questions. They do just the right amount of research, not too much, not too little, and they engage in the business. Those are the people who reap the benefits of the business. You have another group of people, you share a business opportunity with them. They will ask you countless questions, and they'll even repeat some of the questions, keep asking some questions that they have already asked you. They take more than the required time to do a research, Something they need to research for 1 month, they can take 2 years to research. Then after 2 years, they'll call you and say, I'm ready to take the risk now. Please, can I jump into that business now? I'm like, I'm sorry, sir. It's gone. The time for the business venture is gone. They are always late because they are too skeptical that they want to have all the details before they jump in. Those are the kind of people when you meet with them and discuss with them over coffee or over lunch. These people are very knowledgeable. And you ask them, Paul, you are so knowledgeable about stocks. You are so knowledgeable about real estate. You are so knowledgeable about restaurant business. But you have not invested in any of this. Why? They will say, yeah, there was one time I wanted to open a restaurant. My friend told me about it. I researched. But by the time I wanted to enter into that business, it was not still good again at that time. They are always very knowledgeable about businesses that they did not do. They are always very knowledgeable retrospectively. Consequently, they don't get to take the next step in life. Don't get me wrong. To be skeptical is a good thing. But to be skeptical to the extremes is a bad thing. You need to be ready to sometimes to make progress with some uncertainties. That's the beauty about life. Now, another thing that I think is one of the traps that is trapping a lot of people that they don't make those progress in life and take risk and face it and go with it is the fear of failure. And the fear of failure I divided into 2 parts. It's a fear that if you go for it, you will fail. That a fear for future failure, and then also the fear of your past failure. So I'll talk about the both of them. Let me talk about first of all the fear that you will fail. Show me a man who has never failed in life, and I'll show you a man who has done nothing in life. Even doing nothing in life is failure by itself. If you don't do anything in life, you don't take no risk in life, that's already failure. I listened to someone made a statement. Okay, that was Mark Zuckerberg. He says that in the world that we are now, that is changing very rapidly, the biggest risk that you can take is to take no risk. That's the word, not of me. Those are the words of people who are making it big, like Mark Zuckerberg. That this world is changing so rapidly. So the biggest risk you can take in this world that is changing rapidly is to not take any risk. Don't be afraid to fail. Whether you want to fail or not, you will fail anyways in some form or fashion. Don't be afraid to fail. Be ready to fail. The next trap, even in the area of failure, is your past failure. I'll share you my own story. I am in IT today. I'm an IT engineer. But I'll testify to you that it took me 3 trials to get into IT. The first time I tried IT, I paid 1,000 for it. I tried and I was like, this is not working for me. This is not me. I dropped it out. It didn't work out. I dropped out. I didn't succeed. I tried the second time. I paid somebody 1,500. It still did not work out. I failed. But I heard somebody told me about IT again the third time, about something in IT the third time. Though I have failed 2 times and lost my money twice, I was still willing to try a third time. And the third time I tried, it succeeded and I made it through. After failing twice, I could have said, you know what? I'm done with this. I've tried 2 times, I've failed 2 times, IT is not for me, and try to find something else. But I did not let my past 2 failures to determine my future. You see, almost every one of you listening to me have failed. But you can either learn the good out of the failure, or you can give yourself to be buried in the memories of the failure. Don't let your past failure define your next success. I listened to Ben Carson, who ran for the presidential election at one time, was with Donald Trump. He was saying something. He mentioned a product. I've never used the product, but it enlightened me. There's a product, a cleaning product which is called 409. That's the name of the product, 409. They said the product was named because they tried to make that product, a cleaning product, 408 times and it failed. And then they tried it the 409th time and it succeeded. failed that number of times. The last example of it, and I'll move on. When a country wins the World Cup, it doesn't mean they won all the matches they play. If you look at all the matches, they won some, they drew some, but eventually they won the trophy. So through their journey to winning the trophy, they had failure. But don't let your past failure define your potential to succeed in the next endeavor. Do not let that. Now, the next two I'm going to talk to you, I borrowed these ones from Jim Rohn. I listened to Jim Rohn, and it touched me and inspired me, and I thought I also shared with you guys. The last two I just explained for you are things that I've encountered. But this one I'm borrowing from Jim Rohn. He's a motivational speaker. Jim Rohn said something. He says that one of the things that holds people back from taking risks and succeeding in their lives is being too cautious. That when there is a business venture, an endeavor, or a bold step they have to take, they get wrapped in this question, this two-word question. What if? What if I try and I don't make it? What if this happens? What if that happens? And on top of this, that happened and that happened, what if this was also to happen? I'll be in a very deep mess. So I better not try. Jim Rohn says that that's a timid approach to life. Those are his words. That's a timid approach to life. You can't live that way. You cannot be too cautious. You don't want to also be too reckless. But he said you cannot be too cautious. You must be ready and sometimes to be bold and take some steps. And the last one I also learned from Jim Rohn is about being pessimism. And he used a fabulous example that spins my head. He took a glass of water. Yeah, I have a bottle of water. But he took a bottle of water like this one. And just imagine that this was somewhere half. That you show this bottle of water to two groups of people. A pessimistic person and an optimistic person. The pessimistic person will look at this and say, that bottle is half empty. That's what a pessimistic person would say, looking at this bottle. That bottle is half empty. An optimistic person will look at this same bottle and he will say, the bottle is half full. Same bottle, perceived differently by two different groups of people. You see, you choose to see what you want to see. Everything has a negative and has a positive. But you can choose to over-maximize the negative and then you overlook the positive. There are people in the United States of America who have not gone to school to change their life because they say, oh, you go to school, you come out a very big loan. So they are focused on the loan that you will get for going to school, and they completely overlook their future and their financial life that will change as a result of them going to the same school. Don't be too pessimistic to try. Life is risk. You gotta try. Now, a message that I don't want you guys to get out of here today. What I am not saying. I want to specify what I am saying and what I am not saying. Or start what I am not saying. What I am not saying tonight is that go out there and take any risk you see. That's not what I'm saying. I'm not saying that just take any risk. That's not what I'm saying. But what I am saying is that take a calculated risk. Now, what is calculated risk? It's a little bit hard to actually define what is a calculated risk. It's going to be left for you to do your judgment because it's subjective to what you're trying to embark in. A calculated risk for a soccer player, a calculated risk for someone who is a politician and someone who is an entrepreneur. They are different kind of risk. So, but some global keys, generic keys that can help you in trying to take a risk is number one. If the reward is greater than the risk, then take it. But if the risk is bigger than the reward, don't take it. I risk $1,000 to get into IT, and my one paycheck will give me more than 4 times of that 1,000. So it's a good risk to take because the reward is way bigger than the risk. what is the reward? It's like return on investment. How much do you get for investing your time, for standing the chance to lose your time, lose your money, lose your reputation, and all of that? If the reward is bigger than the risk, take it. The second caution, which is generic, depending on what, regardless of what you're trying to venture into, is do not risk the long term for the short term. Rather, risk the short term for the long term. If you are going for a risk that might kill you, that's you risking the long term. If you're going for a risk that might end you up in jail for the rest of your life, that's you are risking the long term. But if a risk means that you're going to suffer for 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, but then you can enjoy for a long term, you can take the risk. For example, every business you want to take, the natural talk about a business school is that when any business you take, you will make losses for about 1-2 years. Then by the 3rd year, you will start breaking even. That means the profit, what you make and what you spend will be equal. Then from the 4th year, you start making some profit, and the business can continue to grow and grow and grow. That's a clear example of risking the short term for the long term, because by making those losses for the first 3 years, you're losing money. But you're losing money for a short term to make more money in the long term. And the last key that I'm going to give is have a backup plan. Regardless of how small the backup plan is, have a backup plan that this is where I'm going to fall. Thank you all so much for the audience. I hope this was helpful. I hope this helps to motivate somebody. I hope this helps somebody to take that next step in their life.